Hey guys, Julian here, and today I am going to be showing you how to make Synth-y tech house like Robbie Doherty. This one was requested by you guys. As usual, you can get the full project file and samples and MIDI and presets. All that stuff from this video is available right at the top of the description, and if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. And yeah, let's dive in. So, this is the loop you heard in the intro. We're at 127 BPM, a little bit faster with the style. I think it makes, like, with this kind of bass line and all this, like, very, bouncy sort of percussion like this, having it a little bit faster like that, I think really helps with the energy. But yeah, and then the first sound that we have here is the kick, which sounds like this. So this one, it's not really a whole lot to it. It's mostly just about the type of sound you choose, just this really fat, hard-hitting kick that still has a lot of nice bass to it. And it's not just like mid-range and high-end, but it's also not only just deep low, and it's got a really nice blend. And you can see I shortened that a little bit, and then I also transposed it, so we have it in key with the bass line. Pretty essential. You want your kick and bass line to be in the same key. And then I just have a little bit of drum bus on that. You can see got a little bit of drive, it got the transients turned up. And yeah, and then after that we have the bass line, which sounds like this. So here's the bass line. It's a pretty simple pattern. It's basically just sticking around F sharp here. That's the key that we're in, is F sharp minor. And then it's just bouncing up to, like, up here we have C sharp, the fifth of F sharp. We have this D, which is one note up from C sharp. We have A, which is the minor third. We have this G sharp, which is the ninth. So you can see it's just like notes in the scale, and then just kind of making this like sort of like bouncy and groovy pattern with that, and then just sort of like knowing how to fit it in with the percussion and everything as well. And yeah, and then for the sound on this one, this is made actually using two layers. What we have is we have this mid-range bass, and then we have our subs. So for the mid-range bass, this is made using analog. What we've got going on here is we have a saw wave, and then we have a square wave, an octave up from the saw wave. So it's a really good way to get like this fat, kind of more like almost old school influence, sort of like plucky bass like this. Because essentially, like, if we just do two saw waves, you can hear, like, you get that nice saw wave thing, but it's not as fat as when you add in a square wave and a saw wave together. Now we're really filling out the harmonic spectrum. So yeah, I've got those two together, going into a low pass filter. The low pass is set like this, you can see it's right there, and then we've got the envelope, no resonance, and then I have a little bit of automation on the frequency. So this is another thing I think with the style, because typically in a tech house track, your bass line would just be like doo-doo-doo-doo, like it'd be like this super deep, kind of low sort of sound. But because we have more of a synthy sound here, this automation really brings it to life, because now we just have this kind of like slowly moving and changing. Yeah, you can hear it especially like right at the end there when it goes way open. So when you have that little bit of movement on the sound, I think it's really going to bring it to life, and it really just adds a lot. And yeah, and then we get the amp envelope set like this, and then I've got a bit of unison as well to make it a bit bigger. And then we just have it being high pass, so it doesn't get in the way of the sub, so it's just kind of specialized in the mid-range and the high-end. For the sub, this is made using operators, so you can see this is just a square wave going into a low pass filter with a little bit. It doesn't even have an envelope on it, it's just a low pass on a square wave. I like using square waves and then filtering them to make the sub, because if we just use a sine wave, you can see it doesn't really work that well. And the reason why is because oftentimes a sine wave can have really quiet notes when you play low. You're still feeling it, but it's very quiet. And then when you play high, all of a sudden the notes are super loud. So, if you use a square wave, you'll notice a square wave has the same volume no matter which note you play. So, if we just low pass that, there we go, we get a sine wave. Or at least a sine wave-esque sound that's just a little bit more even response across all of the notes. And yeah, and then on both of those together, I have a little bit of drum bus. You can see this is set actually pretty hard because we got it on the hard setting, got the transients turned up. You know, this is just gluing the sub and the mid bass together. If I turn this off, you can hear that. Like, it's really just adding that fullness and kind of gluing these together and making them feel more like one bass. So that's pretty essential as well because, like, you know, you're trying to make a synth, like a little synth block like this, sound as big as these other tech house tracks where they have, like, all these crazy different kind of more, I guess you could say, solid basses. So you just got to really fatten this up and really do a lot to sort of glue the sub and the mid-range bass together and make them feel fat like this. Then after that, we just have an EQ8, which is cutting at 100 hertz. To make a little bit of room for the kick, and then we have a compressor which is side chaining this bass to the kick just to kind of keep it under control. It's not a super noticeable side chain, but if I turn this off, you can hear they don't really fit together as well. And the side chain also kind of just makes the bass fit into the groove a little bit more. You know, this is one of those cases where it's like it's a technical thing, but it's not just for, like, the mixing. It's also kind of contributing to just how the overall song sounds and making everything fit together. So yeah, and then we have those in a group together. You know, typically in tech house, I like to take the kick and bass and put them together in a group and then process them, usually with a bit of saturation and some EQ like I've done here, because it's just like I was saying with the two basses. Anytime you saturate two things together like this, you're going to glue them together more and make them feel just a lot more like together and kind of even. And this is really good because this way we can get a really tight and cohesive going that's going to sound really fat and professional. So here's with nothing. And then with the processing, you can see, like, it's not a whole lot. It's pretty subtle, but it's just adding that little bit of depth. So with this one, we've just got a little bit of saturation. You can see without it. And then with it, just gives it that little bit of oomph. And then we just have an EQ, and this is just cutting out a little bit of mud. It's really subtle. Here's without it. And then with it, you know, it's not super noticeable, but it's just adding that little, like, mud cut there to kind of clean that out. And yeah, that is it for the low end group. After that, we have the hi-hats, which there's 4 of them, and they sound like this. So as you can see, yeah, we got these 4 hi-hats. We have, like, this main one, you know, just playing on the upbeats. And then we have these 3 down here, which just kind of play throughout to add a bit of percussion to this. So yeah, I'm mainly showing you this just to show you, like, the level of detail that goes into it. You know, you can't just have this hi-hat. You need to have these little background ones. Even the one like this 4 here, which just plays, like, very sparsely once every bar. But the reason why is because this is what adds depth to the track. Is, like, keep in mind here, you know, you're really just listening to drums and a bass line. And so we're trying to keep that interesting. And so yeah, and then you can kind of see, like, with the mixing, you know, the way I've done this is, like, I have this hi-hat is the loudest one. And then these other ones just kind of sit underneath it. Yeah, that's it for the hi-hats. After that, we have the clap, which sounds like this. So it's just like a little standard sort of clap. The main thing that I noticed is that with this style, typically, you would want, like, a shorter clap. Like, this is a very quick, like that. You know, if you had, like, a big long, like, hitting over top of the whole thing and taking up all that space, I don't think it would fit as well, but this one, you know, just having, like, the little tighter sound like this works really well. After that, we have the tambourine, which sounds like this. So you can hear this is just playing that straight sort of swung 16th notes. What I've got going on here is, you can see we took this sample. And then what I've done is I've shortened it a ton using the amplitude envelope, and then also pitched it down. So the reason why I did this, I'll show you, is if you just take that longer tambourine sample, it's a really good sample, but if you just take that and drop it in here, you can hear it's not really going to fit that well. Yeah, you kind of want something a little bit tighter and shorter to fit into this track. So that's the purpose of this. That's all this is. It's just, I've taken that and shortened it and pitched it down and just kind of made it fit into the track a little more. And now it's like perfectly in there. And if you take it out, you still miss it. But it's not taking up so much space and attention just for this one element. It kind of fits in better. And yeah, and then the last layers that we have down here are these two little percussions, which sound like this. So again, really simple stuff. It's kind of like with the hi-hats where it's like a lot of simple stuff just coming together to make a lot of track. Because you can hear what that's adding in the background. If I take it out, just the hi-hats and bass and kick and clap are a little bit flat, but when you add in these percussions, you know, it kind of brings that to life. And these are really simple. It's just like this one, you know, just like a little standard sort of tech house percussion, and then this one, which I actually pitched down a bunch and I shortened that. So again, another case like with the tambourine, where you just take this and kind of make it your own and make it fit into the track a little bit more. And yeah, and then I have all that percussion in a group together, just with a little bit of saturation. It's just like with the low end, you know, when you have like all these similar elements that fit together in your track, it's important to process them together a little bit because you're going to just make the overall sound a lot more cohesive. And like your percussion is going to sound a lot better this way. Here's without this. And then with it. You know, like when I have it off, you know, all the percussion is in there, but it's a little bit quiet. It's not really that fat. And on top of that, none of it really fits together. But when we turn this on, it makes it all really cohesive. You know, it kind of evens out the textures and the volumes of all these individual sounds. So now, all the percussion fits together really nicely. And it's like, yeah, a lot of times people ask me, like, how do you get your different samples to kind of fit together and make them sound like they're coming from the same place? This is how you do it. It's by putting a little bit of saturation on this because, you know, it's really gluing them together texture-wise and fatness-wise. And yeah, so that's me for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video, as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get the full project file and samples and MIDI and presets. All of that from this video is available right at the top of the description, and if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there, because it's already available. And yeah, thank you so much, guys, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.